So, what happens when the rulebook is just totally silent? It's a pretty high-stakes question, isn't it? I mean, as professionals, we spend years learning the formulas, mastering the software, and memorizing all those codes of conduct. But the reality? Professional ethics is rarely just about following clearly written rules. It's really about what you do when those rules suddenly run out, and you're left standing all alone in the gray area. Now, if you're thinking, oh great, another boring, finger-wagging ethics lecture, hang on a second. James A.H. Campbell really hits the nail on the head with this quote. In real life, the problem is seldom simply knowing the rule. It is applying professional judgment under pressure. You see, written codes are just the baseline. They're the floor you stand on, definitely not the ceiling.
Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking James A.H. Campbell's incredible presentation, Ethics Beyond the Rocks. Think of this as your practical, everyday survival guide. We're going to equip you with the actual tools you need to navigate intense professional pressures, whether you're out there making a tough call in a remote core shed or facing down a demanding boardroom.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our agenda for today. 1. When rules aren't enough. 2. The 3 R's of ethics. 3. The ROCKS decision framework. 4. Real-world ethical dilemmas. And 5. 7 habits for geoscientists.
Section 1. When rules aren't enough, the professional baseline.
To really understand this, let's untangle the alphabet soup of professional codes we all deal with. First, you've got SACNASP, which dictates professional accountability. That's where failures become formal misconduct. Then, SAMREC and SAMVOL govern public reporting, and those rest entirely on materiality and transparency, meaning simply staying quiet on material matters can actually mislead people. And then you have GSSA and SAIM, which really highlight that true ethical conduct is needed precisely where these definitive rules end, or, where they might actually conflict with one another. This really brings the core concept home. Codes simply establish where the rules begin. They are the absolute bare minimum standard. The second you step past that baseline, you aren't relying on a rulebook anymore, you are relying entirely on your own professional judgment.
Let's move to Section 2 and see how this builds. The 3 R's of ethics.
So, how do we handle a dilemma when it hits? It usually follows a chronological flow of 3 steps. Step 1 is to recognize. You have to notice when a purely technical decision has suddenly morphed into an ethical one. You'll usually feel this as pressure, maybe some uncertainty, a weird power imbalance, or sudden, unexplainable silence from leadership. Step 2 is to reason. This is where you have to deliberately separate hard evidence from interpretation, figure out your obligations, and test the potential consequences. And finally, step 3 is to respond. You absolutely must choose a defensible action, whether that means documenting the issue, qualifying your statements, pausing the work entirely, or escalating the problem.
Section 3. The ROCKS decision framework. This framework right here, this is the absolute core of our survival guide. The R stands for reality. When you're looking at a map, a model, or a sample that looks incredibly exciting, you have to hit pause and ask, what is fact, what is interpretation, and what is merely hope? You've got to aggressively separate the actual evidence from everyone's desire for a great result.
O is for obligations. Okay, so once you know the reality of the data, you have to ask, who is responsible for verifying this information before it gets used or shared? What specific codes, laws, and professional duties actually apply to this exact situation?
Next is C for consequences. This is where you calculate the real-world fallout. If we proceed with premature certainty, who gets hurt? Could investors lose their money? Could colleagues be compromised? Could local communities be disadvantaged or even put in physical danger?
K represents known unknowns. What pieces of the puzzle are still missing here? Maybe you're lacking crucial QA/QC data, or the chain of custody for a sample is totally broken. Or hey, perhaps you're simply reaching the limits of your own professional competence. You have to identify those gaps.
And finally, S stands for speak or solve. This is the action phase. Based on the reality, your obligations, the consequences, and those unknowns, what must you do right now? Do you need to pause the project? Do you need to qualify a public statement, carefully document a refusal, or escalate the whole issue to a higher authority?
To help structure this entire process, Campbell introduces the 7-beat case card to document real-life examples. It's brilliant. You break it down by the setting, the trigger that just felt wrong, the pressure you faced, the stakeholders involved, the options you had, your final decision, and crucially, the lesson a younger professional should copy for next time.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part, Section 4, Real-World Ethical Dilemmas.
Because let's face it, dilemmas rarely announce themselves neatly. They manifest everywhere. It could be a data integrity issue where someone is cherry-picking results. It could be pressure to sign off on something way outside your actual competence. It could be public reporting, conflicts of interest, or even the wild new frontier of AI and digital data, where model bias and totally unaccountable outputs are creating massive ethical blind spots. But ultimately, it almost always boils down to leadership. Specifically, those moments when staying silent feels infinitely easier than correcting a colleague or escalating a problem.
Put yourself in this exact scenario for a second. The organization wants a much stronger public message than the geological evidence actually supports. They want to throw around promotional language like world-class discovery or major discovery potential. But you look at the data, and the only truly defensible statement is priority target requiring follow-up. Your ethical task right there is to protect public trust while still communicating progress. It's a tough balance.
And this leads us to one of the absolute powerhouse takeaways from the source material. Good news is not good if it cannot survive scrutiny. Promotional language isn't just harmless marketing. It becomes a massive technical risk the absolute moment it outpaces the actual evidence. If your QA/QC and data integrity aren't rock solid, that good news will eventually collapse.
Section 5. 7 Habits for Geoscientists.
Look, frameworks are great for crises, but ethics, that's an everyday practice. So the crucial point is maintaining these 7 habits for your baseline. Number 1, carry uncertainty honestly. 2, never outsource your professional judgment to someone else. 3, use your codes of conduct way before a crisis hits, not just when you're already in trouble. 4, always write down your decision trail. 5, escalate issues early and professionally. 6, protect people and places, not just the data, because social license is built in small daily behaviors. And 7, remember that your professional reputation is built agonizingly slowly, but it can be lost in a literal instant. I want to leave you with this lingering, deeply personal question that James A. Campbell poses at the end of his presentation. When the pressure is mounting, the hierarchy is pushing down on you, and the rulebook is completely silent, ask yourself, what would future you be proud to have done? Take these tools, apply them to your next project, and make sure your future self can look back with pride. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking those hard questions.